Welcome back to McCarthy Performance. We were finishing up the AFR heads. I did a valve job on them. I did it on my Tobin harp. Then I touched it up with stones. And I was trimming the video and I lost the whole video. So that's the way it goes. Cleaned up the combustion chambers a little bit more. Kind of did a little finesse work on them. So now we're evening them up. The last thing I'm going to do is do a finish cut on the decks of these. I'm taking off roughly around 4 to 5.5. If I'm anywhere is in that area, I'm good. I just cut the last head. That head said that I took 5 thousandths off of it. I checked these bosses, and it's not 100% accurate. Of course, I can go off the seat to the face of the head, and I have that tool. We're really close. If I get anywhere within 2 thousandths variation between the two heads, I'm not going to lose a whole lot of sleep over it. I like to get it as close as I can, but realistically, that's pretty good. If you're doing better than that, God bless you. So we're setting the head up, and we've already cut the head. Now, when I cut the head the first time, I only took enough off to make a nice clean cut on the head because I did a lot of welding on it, of course. If you've seen these heads, if not, there's videos of 2 sets of AFR heads, and the earlier ones were really bad, and these weren't a heck of a lot better. But you can go back. I've got like 401 videos now, and I put them on there for you to watch and to enjoy, maybe learn something. Anyhow, so we're setting the head up, and we're going to get it on the machine here, and I'm going to level it, and then I'm going to run a dial indicator across the deck. Once I get that set, then we'll get the make sure that it's not tilted, and I'll do a 1 witness cut, just a light cut, to see where the head is setting on the machine, relevant to the gibs and the wheel on the machine. Just because the deck is reading level does not mean that the head is level with the risers, excuse me. Of course, when we put a dial indicator across here, that'll tell us quite a bit. So that's why I level it, and that's why I dial indicate it. So we'll get going on that. You always want to check your level. Your level, if it's off 1 degree, it's not the end of the world. You want to make sure, if it is, that the head reads relative to what the level is saying. Now, the level is telling me it's way the hell off this way. So that's not a problem, because the way the level sets, the way it was setting on these were all ground. I rebuilt this machine. These are pretty darn close enough to put a dial indicator across the deck. So we're going to move this head, and there's a lot of different ways you can square the head up on the machine. Right now, we're off 1 degree, 1 point on the level. Okay. one mark off, plus this way, so we're going to have to go down a little bit. Sometimes I have a lead hammer and I'll lightly tap it. If you do tap the head, you want to go back and make sure that you didn't loosen up I'm using studs that's bolted to the fixture. Okay. Might have went a little bit the wrong way, and I seem to do that a lot. But maybe not. Let's see here. Okay, we're 1 degree this way. So we need to go up a little bit. Okay. Now this is how I do it. I'm not saying that this is the best way to do it, or I'm saying that I'm right doing it this way. I've just done enough cylinder heads on this machine that this is the way I do it. You can get eccentric setups that you can turn them and they'll raise the head, and I just use on this particular head, it'd be a 2 3/8 studs, and I just put them in there, and the holes are big enough that I slot them. They're slotted. You just want to make sure that you use a washer bigger than the surface area of the slot, so it don't fall in the slot, and then you can't tilt the head. You don't want that. I always put, I use either a 7/16 big block Chevrolet rocker arm ball, or I use basically almost a fender washer that you can find them. And then I shim the head to make sure that nothing's binding, like this rail here. A lot of heads on the intake side have a rail. You want to make sure you shim it out. You don't want to clamp on this. You want this surface, the flattest surface on the head is what you want to clamp onto. So we're pretty good. We're pretty close. So, of course, you want to bring the head of the machine up high enough that you can run across, that you don't catch your cutter on the surface. So that's basic knowledge. It's obvious, but you'd be surprised. It's happened. So I'll put a dial indicator on the head. Like that. And I'll make sure that I'll put it in a situation where it's not going to drop down the water passages in the head or bolt holes. So we're all the way back. We'll make sure everything's tight and nothing's going to move. Okay, we're at 0. Turn the machine on. Okay, now we're going to trim the head into the machine. I had to turn the power on. So we'll go and see where we got it. Okay, so my level is 5 thousandths off because that's what it's saying on the dial indicator. So we'll adjust the head and we'll run the dial indicator back after I adjust it to make sure that it reads correctly. So the head's got to go down 5 thousandths. So we'll drop the head. Okay, it says we're because this is on an angle and I'm bolting it on the exhaust side, you got to be careful. The head will change quite a bit because of that angle, and it sometimes will, when you tighten it, it'll want to walk up the plate like it's doing right now. So I just tighten it up a little bit so it can't slide like it's doing. And I'll take my lead hammer and I'll just give it that says 1 thousandths right there. Wanting to walk up, so I'll put this clamp I'll put this strap on the ratchet strap, and that'll pull down on the head a little bit right there. Now we're doing 2 angles. I got 2 stands under here, but theoretically you could do 3 points on it, but this is just the way I do it. Okay, so it dropped down 1 thousandths. It's going to climb a little bit when I tighten it. Give it a wrap. This is a light hammer. This one's a little heavier. Okay. That says 1/2 thousandths. Okay, we'll reset it and we'll check it. Okay, so it says 3 thousandths. So I'm going to zero it again. I'm going to run it back here and I'm going to get it till it reads 0. And once I do that, then I'll set the head up for tilt. And then I'll cut it. And but that's how I set it up. And it takes a while, so you're probably not going to sit there and watch me do it 2 more times probably. But I'll get it closer and then I'll get back. Okay, I believe I got it pretty damn close. It's reading 0. Let's see, I believe it should be pretty close to 0 all the way across the head, so let's check it out. If you can trim the head at the widest part, which would be this part here, that's how I do that. And I'll save you that. It's reading plenty close enough at this point. It's damn near 0, so we're going to run it to the center part of the head, probably here, and then I'm going to bring the head down until it just touches. I can use a brass feeler gauge. I've done that. You can do that. I'm not going to do that because I'm lazy. So I'll bring the cutter up. I see where the cutter's at. Of course, you don't want to drop it down when the machine's running because you don't want to dig across the deck. You just want to, you'll hear an audible sound, and that's where you want to stop. Okay, so we're gonna drop the cutter down. I'm gonna bring it back and forth. You don't want to drop the cutter hard. You don't want to chip the cutter. This is kind of a finesse type deal, and you know you probably shouldn't do it this way. So you seeing me do it. I'm gonna eventually make up a stand with a dial indicator, and I'll be able to sweep the head, and it'll read true off this surface of the head. This surface here is pretty true. This is originally where the dresser was for this Burco when it used to run stones. I'm running CBN and polycrystal diamond. What I have on there now is a polycrystal diamond for the aluminum. But anyways, that's what I'm going to do. But for right now, I'm going to do it this way because this way has always worked. You don't want to gouge the head. You know, like I said, it takes some finesse. Okay, so we'll call that 0. We're going to back it off because I know that I've done this long enough that I can tell you that it's going to rub here. So I'm going to back it off. It's just touching the head right there. So the head is quite a bit off. It's 10, damn near 18 thousandths off this way until in the level set it was relatively close. But like I said, there's a dozen ways to do this. This is the way I do it. If you do it a different way, that's great. If it works for you, that's great. This works for me. Okay, so I am off with the level. When I moved the head, it probably changed it a little bit. When I strapped it down, it definitely did change it a little bit. Because we're on an angle, so it changes a lot. So we're going to crank it up to where I believe it should be close. And then we'll make sure that the wheel is up high enough. We don't want to gouge the head, which you don't want to chip the cutter either. So this is kind of a half-assed way to do it, but this is the way I've done it for a long time. I haven't chipped anything or gouged anything. So it's just, you know, it takes kind of a little bit of finesse. And I've checked this surface and I've it scraped all the paint off of it. It's pretty close to being true with the table. So the head is square both ways. You can probably can't hear it. You can hear it just lightly touching. It's touching here and it's touching there. So we're going to call that 0. We're going to back the head off. I always back the head off. I'm going to back the head off 2.5 thousandths. Going to lock it down. Now I'm going to make a cut across the head and see what it looks like. So I'll get back to you when we fire up the mill. Sometimes I'll use a marker to aid in to see where the head is and where I've cut it. I've already cut the head, so yeah, and I always do this with the pliers on this, and I know that ain't right to do, but this is an old machine, and it's kind of wore out. That gear that's in there, and that gear would take a lot to reproduce it, so I probably should maybe this fall try to shim it, but I always do that. It's probably not necessary, but it just makes me feel better. I don't want this thing dropping. So it's never dropped because I've always tightened this, and I don't know if I didn't tighten it, would it drop? I don't want to find out. So here we go. Be able to sweep this without making a cut. If there's a little high spot where I put the seats or something, that might show up, but that'll probably show up around the thigh. So we're 2.5 thousandths away from the surface of this deck right now. I'll take one real light cut on the head, and then I'll determine whether I need to move the head up or tilt the head down or drop one end or raise one end, and that's like in the thousandths, you know. I don't want to take any more off these heads, and I absolutely have to. So right now we're 2.5 thousandths. You know, there could be a spot on this head we may hit. Hard to say. It shouldn't, but that ain't a guarantee. So far it looks pretty good. Nothing's caught something. I just heard it. It might be the corner of the head. Back cut, this machine usually takes a little bit more of a cut, so going this way it might take to drop down a thou. Okay, it picked up a little spot on the deck when I put the seat in, and I don't think I put a seat on this one. Not right there. Well, I don't know why that's... I must have put a seat there. It picked up the deck a little bit when I put the seat in. There's usually, I carry about 2 thousandths to 3 thousandths worth of press when I drive them. Even if you freeze them in dry ice and you heat them, it doesn't necessarily make it a drop in. I put about 8 thousandths on my press, and as soon as the seat gets close to the head, it's hot, so you don't want to dwell on that too long, because what will happen is you lose the heat, you know. The heat will warm up the seat, let's put it that way. So that's what's happening. picking up on this side of the head. We're just barely touching it. We're touching it here and there. So I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to drop it down 1/1000 and see what if it starts to catch some of this part of the head. If not, I'll probably tack this down 1/1000. So. These heads had cometic gaskets on them, and when you put a cometic gasket on a head, you want to make sure that the rivets, the eyelets or the rivets, however you want it, whatever you want to call them, that hold the cometic gaskets together, you want to make sure that them rivets that hold the cometic layers together are not on the deck. Well, they were on the deck on this head, and they were clamped down at the highest spot, and that was probably about 40 thousandths taller than the compression of the gasket them rivets were. Okay, we finished up that cut. Like I said, that back cut probably changes the head a little bit, about 1/1000, maybe not even that much. But we're picking up all the way to here, so we're definitely not moving the head. This is a little low, but like I said before, these heads were twisted because of that, because of the eyelets. And I'll show you what I'm talking about, but I'm going to leave the head alone because we're all the way to here and we're all the way to there. So there's really no sense trying to move the head. I used mineral spirits on the deck. When I welded it, it cleans up pretty good, but when I'm taking light cuts, I think it's time to turn the CB, it's not a CBN, it's a polycrystal diamond. So it's time to move the polycrystal diamond, I think, but I think I can get by with it. It's starting to raise up where I welded it a little bit. It's hard to see, but it's not as good as it could be. So, but the mineral spirit seems to help that. So I sprayed some mineral spirits on it. I'm going to set it down, and then I'm going to make another pass on it. Okay, this is going to be my last cut on this head. I'm not going to take any more off this head. They should be very close. Okay, we're done with the heads. I told you I'd show you what I was talking about, the dent of these heads, and that's still in there quite a ways. And I mean, you know, you got all the head studs pulling down on that head. They they failed to remove that one. They failed to remove this one on this side. This side cleaned up, but this one was horrible. These little eyelets, I call them eyelets. You always want to make sure that they're away from the surface area. Now on these Chevys, they put two of them up, obviously, here and here. Well, them should have been removed. This is an LS, of course, but I wanted to show you that's what you got to watch out for. You got to remove them. The plates will all line up on the dowels locators. You don't need to really have very many in there. And on small block Fords, you take out, like, I think two of them too, so there isn't a whole lot holding it all together, but it does when you put it on the eye or dowels. So you want to make sure that you're not compressing that into the surface. And man, that, you know, this was professionally built, and that's very unprofessional. So we'll get them up on the table, blow them off, and I'll lightly sand around the combustion chamber because it is sharp. There's a little bit of porosity, not bad. Some heads weld better than others. Some heads have a lot of impreg in them, and there's a lot of stuff that you're constantly burning out of the head. You know, as bad as these were, I'd say they're pretty decent, but of course, the customer will make that decision, but this isn't the first set of heads I've built for him, so I think he likes my work. So we'll get him up on the table here in a minute. Well, here they are. I always want them better, but sometimes it's best to quit while you're ahead. They're definitely usable. Like I said, there's a little bit of porosity in where I welded. Let's see here. I could hide it, you know, a little bit there. This head, not bad. As bad as they were, there's a little bit here, obviously. But, you know, they're better than they were. And the chamber on, which one would it be? This one here. You know, the valves were pretty much trying to get through the head. So, I mean, this was all destroyed. But like I said, it's a video of one of my videos that shows me welding these all up, and I think I probably on a total probably took maybe, I would say no more than 12 thousandths off the deck of the heads. So it wasn't like I was cutting them until I got them to a point where, you know, they removed a lot of the damage. It just, that wasn't the case. But actually a lot of the problem, these heads were twisted quite a bit just to straighten out where them eyelets were. Down there on that one you could barely see it, but on this one you could definitely see it was digging right into the head. So them heads are all done, and like I said, I had a video of me cutting the seats and grinding the seats, but there's plenty of videos of me doing that. So that's going to be it on this video. I'm pretty much done with the heads. So the AFR heads are done. Thanks for watching.